What if the fastest return on investment in all of small farm livestock weighed less than half a pound, needed just 1 square foot of space per bird, and started laying eggs before most chickens have even grown their first adult feathers? That is not a hypothetical. That is the Coturnix quail, and in this video, I am going to show you how to build a working 50-bird operation from scratch: the pen, the feed, the lighting, the egg collection, and exactly where and how to sell quail eggs for the best price in your area. Everything in this video is verified. Let's go. Welcome back. If you've been following this series from the beginning, the half-acre homestead income breakdown, the fodder system, the Nigerian dwarf goat guide, you know by now that every animal we cover is chosen for one reason: maximum output per square foot on a small budget. Quail are the most extreme example of that principle we've covered yet. Here's what we're going to walk through today. First, why Coturnix quail are the right species for a beginner homestead operation, and what makes them genuinely different from every other backyard livestock option. Second, housing and space requirements. We're building a 50-bird setup that fits in a garage, a shed, or a covered outdoor area. Third, feeding. What quail eat, how much, and what protein levels you actually need at each stage. Fourth, lighting, because without getting this right, your production will be seasonal instead of year-round. Fifth, egg collection, storage, and what to do with 30 to 40 dozen eggs per month. And sixth, the income side, where to sell, what the market looks like right now, and the one sales channel that consistently outperforms every other for small-scale quail producers. Quick note before we dive in: if you find this useful, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it makes sure you don't miss the next video in the series. Now, let's get into it. Let me give you the numbers that make Coturnix quail so unusual as a homestead livestock option, because once you see them laid out side by side, the case makes itself. Maturity speed. A Coturnix quail hen begins laying eggs at 6 to 8 weeks of age. The industry average for a standard laying hen is 16 to 20 weeks. That means a quail operation reaches profitability in roughly 1/3 the time of a chicken flock. Egg production. A healthy Coturnix hen will lay approximately 300 eggs per year, nearly 1 per day, during her peak laying period, which runs through her first 12 to 18 months of life. That rate is, as one quail specialist noted, right up there with the commercial leghorn in the chicken egg industry. After 18 months, production begins to decline, which is why most commercial quail operations rotate new layers in on a regular schedule. Space efficiency. The universal standard for Coturnix quail housing is 1 square foot of floor space per bird. A 4-foot by 8-foot elevated wire pen, 32 square feet, can house 30 birds comfortably. 2 such pens in a small garage or covered shed house your full 50-bird operation in 64 square feet of total floor space. Compare that to the 10 square feet of indoor space plus yard access required per laying hen, and the density advantage of quail becomes unmistakable. Noise. Male quail produce a distinctive soft crow, described by most keepers as a musical warble, that is a fraction of the volume of a rooster. Hens are nearly silent. This is one of the primary reasons quail are legal to keep in city ordinances and HOA-governed neighborhoods, where roosters and sometimes even hens are prohibited. Always verify your local rules before you start, but the regulatory flexibility of quail opens homestead egg production to a significantly wider range of living situations than chickens alone. Feed efficiency. A Coturnix quail consumes approximately 14 to 28 grams of feed per day, roughly 20 grams on average or less than 1 ounce. A standard laying hen eats 100 to 120 grams per day. Per egg produced, quail are meaningfully more feed efficient than most chicken breeds.
A peer-reviewed study published in the journal Poultry Science through the National Institutes of Health evaluated the economic feasibility of small-scale egg production and directly compared chickens to quail. The study found that at farmers' market prices, raising quail had the highest net present value of all the production models evaluated, including laying hens with and without molting cycles. That is academic confirmation of what experienced homesteaders have known for years. Let's build the setup. A 50-bird quail operation does not require a building permit, a contractor, or more than 1 weekend of work. Here is what you need. The pen structure. Elevated wire cages are the most practical housing choice for Coturnix quail at a small farm scale. Elevating the cages off the ground serves two functions. It allows droppings to fall through the wire floor into a collection tray below, dramatically reducing cleaning labor and ammonia buildup, and it eliminates the ground-level predator vulnerability of a floor pen. Build or purchase cages from half-inch hardware cloth, sometimes called half-inch welded wire mesh. This wire spacing is small enough to prevent quail feet from going through and getting caught, while still allowing droppings to fall through cleanly. Do not use chicken wire. It is too flimsy for predator protection, and the hexagonal spacing is not optimal for quail. Interior cage height. This is the detail that most beginners miss, and it matters. The interior height of your quail cage should be either under 12 inches or over 6 feet. There is no middle ground. When startled by a sudden noise, a shadow, or a predator outside the pen, Coturnix quail react by launching straight upward in what is called a flush. In a cage with a ceiling height between 12 inches and 6 feet, a flushing bird will hit the top of the cage at speed and break its neck. This is called stargazing injury, and it is entirely preventable by simply keeping cage height to 8 to 10 inches for a standard production pen. At that height, a flushing bird bumps the ceiling at low speed without injury. Many experienced keepers line the top of cages with soft mesh or craft foam for additional cushioning.
The droppings tray. Place a sheet of plywood, a plastic tray, or a thick layer of newspaper directly below each cage, set 6 to 8 inches beneath the wire floor. This catches droppings for weekly or twice-weekly cleaning. Quail manure is high in nitrogen. It makes excellent compost and garden amendment after a brief curing period. Water. Nipple-style waterers mounted horizontally to the side of the cage are the most hygienic option for quail. Standard open water dishes get contaminated with droppings and feed within hours and require constant cleaning. A horizontal nipple system, the kind used in rabbit housing, delivers clean water on demand and can be connected to a gravity-fed reservoir for minimal daily maintenance. Feed trough. A simple external feed trough running the length of the cage front, accessible through the wire, keeps feed off the floor and out of the dropping zone. Quail will push feed around actively, so a lip on the trough of at least ½ inch reduces waste. For 50 birds, 2 4x4 or 4x8 elevated cage units, or a combination of cage sizes totaling at least 50 square feet of floor space, will house your flock comfortably with room to expand. Materials to build 2 basic 4x4 wire cages with a wood frame and droppings board will cost approximately $80 to $150 in materials at current lumber and wire prices. Quail have straightforward feed requirements, but they are specific, and getting the protein level right is the single biggest factor in egg production consistency. Chicks, 0 to 7 weeks, feed a game bird or turkey starter with a protein content of 25 to 30%. This high protein level fuels the extraordinarily rapid growth rate of young Coturnix. Standard chicken chick starter at 18% protein is insufficient. Quail chicks raised on low protein feed will be stunted, will lay later, and will produce fewer eggs across their lifetime. Game bird starter is available at most U.S. farm supply stores. Tractor Supply, Rural King, and most local co-ops carry it, typically at $18 to $30 for a 50-pound bag. If you cannot find dedicated game bird starter locally, a turkey starter feed at 28% protein is a widely used and effective substitute. Laying hens, 7 weeks and older. Once hens begin laying, which you will know by finding eggs on the cage floor, since quail do not use nesting boxes and simply lay wherever they stand, transition to a game bird layer feed with 18 to 20% protein. Some keepers continue feeding 24% protein through the full laying period, citing better egg production, and this is a reasonable approach for a small flock, where the modest additional feed cost is outweighed by production gains. Calcium supplementation. Laying quail needs supplemental calcium for strong shell formation. Crushed oyster shell or recycled crushed eggshells in a small dish beside the feed trough, offered free choice, allows hens to self-regulate their calcium intake. Standard whole oyster shell designed for chickens needs to be crushed finer. Quail will not consume large pieces effectively. Fodder as a supplement. Sprouted barley or wheat fodder, as we covered in video 2, is an excellent daily supplement for quail. A small handful of green sprouts per bird per day provides vitamins E and beta-carotene that improve yolk color and immune function, and quail eat it enthusiastically.
Introduce it gradually over the first week. Daily feed amount. Plan for approximately 20 grams of feed per bird per day as an average across your flock. For 50 birds, that is approximately 1 kilogram, just over 2 pounds, of feed per day. A 50-pound bag of game bird feed will last your 50-bird flock approximately 22 to 25 days, at a cost of $18 to $30 per bag. Monthly feed cost for 50 birds, approximately $20 to $40. Here is the single most impactful management decision you will make for year-round quail egg production, and it costs about $12 to set up. Coturnix quail, like most laying poultry, regulate their reproductive cycle by day length. When days are long, 14 or more hours of light, hens lay consistently. When days shorten below 14 hours in fall and winter, production drops sharply and may stop entirely without intervention.
The fix is straightforward. Provide 14 to 16 hours of light per day using a simple plug-in timer on your coop light. Set the timer to supplement whatever natural light your pen receives, so that total daily light exposure reaches 14 to 16 hours. If your pen is indoors or in a windowless garage, the artificial light handles the full duty cycle. A single 40-watt incandescent bulb or an equivalent warm spectrum LED light positioned above the cage is sufficient for a standard small pen setup. One important note: do not run lights continuously, 24 hours a day. Quail require a period of darkness for rest and overall physiological health. A 16-hour light, 8-hour dark cycle is the standard recommendation across every quail keeping reference source, and it works reliably. Some experienced keepers prefer to run the supplemental light on the early morning end of the day, turning lights on at 3 or 4 a.m. to extend the morning so that by the time natural daylight arrives, the birds have already had several hours of active light time. This allows the evening to end naturally with sunset, which many keepers find is less disruptive to the flock than abrupt artificial darkness at the end of the day. Coturnix quail lay their eggs directly on the cage floor, typically in the afternoon and evening hours. Unlike chickens, they have no nesting instinct. They simply drop the egg wherever they happen to be standing. This makes collection simple. Walk along the pen front twice daily and collect eggs by hand. Collect eggs at least twice per day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Leaving eggs on the wire floor for extended periods results in cracking, especially in a multi-bird pen where birds step on them, and in warmer months, eggs left uncollected can begin developing if fertilized. Storage. Store quail eggs pointed end down in a cool location. Refrigerated between 35 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit, quail eggs stay fresh for up to 6 weeks, significantly longer than the recommended 3 to 5 week window for chicken eggs. This extended shelf life is practically valuable for a homestead producer because it gives you more flexibility in your sales schedule. You can accumulate a full week or two of production before going to a farmer's market without compromising freshness. Cartons. Invest in purpose-made quail egg cartons. Standard 12-egg and 18-egg quail cartons are available online from multiple suppliers for 30 cents to 60 cents per carton in quantity. A simple printed label with your farm name, production date, and refrigeration instructions elevates your presentation significantly and increases perceived value, which directly affects what price you can charge.
Let's run the real income numbers for a 50-bird Coturnix quail operation. Production math. 50 hens producing at 85 to 90% of peak rate, which is realistic for a healthy, well-fed flock on 14 to 16 hours of light, will produce approximately 43 to 45 eggs per day. That is roughly 300 to 315 eggs per week, or 25 to 26 dozen per week. Monthly production. Approximately 100 to 104 dozen quail eggs per month. Pricing by sales channel. Farmers markets, $4 to $8 per dozen for eating eggs, depending on location. In urban markets and areas with higher awareness of specialty foods, the $6 to $8 range is achievable and well documented. One Backyard Chickens forum contributor noted selling out her quail egg supply at $6 per dozen within 1 hour at her local market. Direct to consumer. Through a roadside stand, farm website, or regular customer base, $5 to $10 per dozen. Specialty restaurants and farm-to-table cafes, often $6 to $9 per dozen wholesale, with restaurants using quail eggs for appetizers and garnishes where presentation justifies a premium ingredient cost. Hatching eggs, selling fertile eggs to other homesteaders who want to hatch their own flock, $8 to $15 per dozen, sold online or locally. Monthly income projection for 50 birds. At the conservative end, 100 dozen per month, sold at $5 per dozen, gross monthly income is $500. At a moderate farmers market rate of $6 per dozen, $600 per month gross. At $8 per dozen, which is achievable in most urban and suburban U.S. markets, $800 per month gross. Subtract monthly feed costs of $20 to $40, carton costs of roughly $30 to $60 for 100 dozen cartons, and any market fees, and net monthly income from 50 quail at a 6 selling price lands around $490 to $540 per month. That is from 50 birds living in 50 square feet of pen space.
Now, a critical piece of context, and I want to be honest with you about it. The income projections above assume you have a reliable sales outlet at farmers market prices. The PMC academic study I referenced earlier specifically noted that quail egg income at farm gate prices, selling wholesale to commercial buyers rather than direct to consumers, is significantly lower. The profitability of a small quail operation depends on selling direct. Farmers markets, roadside stands, restaurant relationships, and subscription egg boxes are the channels that make the numbers work. If you are in a rural area with no farmers market access, research your local restaurants, food co-ops, and Asian grocery stores, all of which represent documented consistent buyers of quail eggs in the U.S. market.
Let's bring this together. Coturnix quail are the most space-efficient, fastest maturing, and, at farmers market prices, most economically viable egg livestock available to a small U.S. homesteader. A 50-bird operation requires 50 square feet of pen space, roughly $150 to build, $20 to $40 per month to feed, and approximately 20 to 30 minutes of daily care. It can be producing and generating income within 8 weeks of your first birds arriving. They fit in a garage, a garden shed, a covered porch. They work in city backyards where chickens aren't allowed. They work in HOA neighborhoods. They work for seniors and retirees who want an animal that is small, manageable, low noise, and financially productive, without demanding heavy physical labor. The one honest limitation is the sales side. You need to find your market before you scale your flock. Start with 25 birds, prove your local demand, and expand to 50 or beyond once you have buyers in place. A full carton of unsold eggs in a refrigerator is a reminder that production without distribution is just a feed bill. But when the system is working, and it works for thousands of small homesteaders across the United States right now, 50 quail living in the corner of your garage can quietly and consistently put $400 to $600 per month into your account, month after month, from a bird that weighs less than a can of soup. That is the Coturnix quail, and I hope this video gave you everything you need to start. Thank you for watching. The work you're putting into learning this and eventually building it is exactly the kind of intentional living this channel is built to support. This is small purposeful farming. See you in the next video.